Let us start with the second project, and in our first project we have built this counter using useStateHook. Now same counter we are going to build using useReducer hook. Once we start building this simple application using useReducer hook, then slowly you will understand structure of useReducer, and one by one you will be able to understand the concept used inside useReducer hook. Again, incrementing the counter, decrementing and resetting the counter. All these three functionalities we are going to implement using useReducer. We will come to first project. Inside SRC, I am going to create a new folder. I will give the folder name as counter reducer. Inside this, I will write counter.js. And from this counter state counter.js, I am going to copy all the code, and inside this I am going to paste. Now I will come to app.js. Now in place of counter state, I will be giving counter reducer. So from this folder, I just want to access my counter.js. Close this. Come here. Now you can see again when I click on this, every functionality will be working because inside this we have used useState and we have written entire functionality. Now this entire project we are going to convert, an entire logic we are going to write using useReducer. So before that, first let me write here log. Inside this I will write useReducer. When I just select this one, useReducer will be imported from React library. So this is the first step. Whenever you are using hooks in React, you should always import that hook. So now it is also a function. Save it. Come here. Inspect this. You can see useReducer is also a function which will be returning array. Inside this I am having two elements. So first is undefined, which is nothing but a state, and second is our function using which we are going to update our state. So this useState is also a function which will be returning array, and from that array we have just destructured this value. But while calling this useState, we are going to pass one argument that will be the initial state of our application. But when we are calling useReducer, we are going to call with two arguments. First will be a reducer function and second will be our initial state. Let me remove this. So first I'm just going to call my useReducer. Inside this first argument, we are going to pass our reducer function. And this reducer is the function where we are going to manage all the state of our application. And second, we are going to pass initial state. As of now, I am not going to create any variable. Instead, I will assign the value as 0. How I have assigned default value 0. Similarly, for initial state, I have assigned the value as 0. So this is my useReducer function, which will be called using two arguments. First argument will be the reducer function and second will be the initial state. And this function is going to return array. So immediately what we will do, we are going to destructure that array. So here first value I'm just going to give state. You can also give count, but as of now we are comparing with this useState. So here I will be giving count, because here inside this we have given count. So simply I will write here count. Then next is the function, and most of the developers, they will simply use this dispatch. You can give any name, but simply as a convention we always write dispatch. So simply pass this dispatch. I will just comment this setter function. So now if you compare, useState will be taking one argument and that will be the initial value of a state. But useReducer will be taking two argument, reducer function under initial state, and inside reducer function, we are going to manage all the state changes. And then we are having our default. For this count, this 0 will be assigned. And then we are having this dispatch function. Using this dispatch function, we are going to request and we are going to update our state. As of now, do not worry about this reducer. Do not worry about this dispatch. Only thing, understand the structure of writing this use reducer. Later, one by one, using analogies and multiple example, we are going to understand each and every concept. Okay, this dispatch is similar to set count function. Now using this setter function, what we have done, for each and every functionality, we have created function and accordingly we have performed the action and we have called that function. But now using useReducer, we do not have to write all these functions. I'm going to comment. Now I will come down. Inside this, instead of passing this handle increment, handle decrement, handle reset, directly we are going to write our dispatch method. You can also call it as function. Inside this, we are going to pass object, but as of now, I will pass simple string. Here I will write increment. Similarly, I will remove this. I will be writing dispatch, and inside this, I will be writing decrement. Then finally, I will remove. Here I will be writing dispatch, and inside this, I will be writing reset. Simple enough. I have removed all the functions. Instead, using this dispatch, I am requesting to perform increment. I am requesting to perform decrement, and also I am requesting to perform this reset. Now what I am doing? I am just requesting to update the state, and our entire state will be handled inside reducer function. So this reducer function we are going to create outside of this component, because each and every time whenever our component is getting mount, we do not want to call this reducer function. Only when we are requesting using dispatch, only then we have to call the reducer function, and accordingly the action or the operation has to be performed. So here I will be writing function reducer. You can see I have passed the same name. You can also use arrow function, and this reducer function will be taking two parameters, initial state and an action. Initial state is nothing but whatever we have passed, and action is nothing but whatever dispatch action we have done, whatever we are requesting, according to that action we have to perform our operation. So here initial state, I will give the variable as state, and second parameter I'm just going to give action. So what it will do, this reducer function will be taking two parameters, current state and an action. And based on this current state and action, whatever dispatch we have done, it is going to return the next state. So now what we are going to do, we are just going to check what request we have made. And this action what we have passed, that is the entire value which we have passed inside this dispatch function. So here I will be writing switch, and inside this I'm just going to pass my expression as action. So here first time when I click on this increment, action is nothing but increment. Increment will be passed here. So I will be checking for the cases. If my case is equal to increment, because when I click on this increment, inside dispatch I have passed this string. That string will be passed inside this switch expression, and this case will be matched. So when I am doing increment, what I have to do, I just have to return the new state. Now current value of state is 0. Here I will be writing return. Then what I have to do, simply I have to increase the value by 1. That's it. I do not have to do anything. I just have to increase the value by 1. Now let us see the result. But here we are going to have this error. Too many re-renders. React is limited to number of re-renders to prevent an infinite loop. Why? Because this dispatch is nothing but it is a function, and inside this onClick directly we have called this dispatch function. We should not do this. Instead, whenever we click on this, only then dispatch has to request for this increment. So here what we will do, we will pass this dispatch as value. So here we have to pass callback function. Again inside this I will be writing this callback function. Again here I am just going to write this callback function. Save it. Now immediately this dispatch function will not be called. Only when I click on this increment button, it is requesting to update the state using this action. And once this action is matched, what I am doing, I am just incrementing the state by 1. I will come here. Now you can see that error has gone. Now I will click on this. You can see successfully I am able to get my result. But for decrement, I will not be having any result. And when I click on this reset, then also I will not be having any value. So here, whenever I click on decrement, I just have to perform this request. So below this, I will be writing case. And inside this, I'm just going to write decrement. I will just format. I will write decrement. And whenever I'm decrementing, I have to subtract the state by 1. Save it. Refresh once. Initially, I am having 0. Now when I click on this decrement, you can see successfully I am able to perform. And always remember, React is all about immutability, and this reducer function will take the current state and it is going to take the action. Accordingly, it is going to return the new state. It is not going to update our state. Instead, it is going to return new state. Then below that, I will be writing last case, that is reset. And inside this, what I have to do? Simply, I have to return 0. Now I'll come here. I will click on this reset. You can see successfully I am having value 0. And finally, inside switch, we will always pass this default state and I will be returning my current state. If I am not performing any operation, simply I am just going to return my state. Increment is working, decrement is working, and also reset is working. But whenever we are working with useReducer, instead of directly passing the value, here I will be creating one variable, initial state. Now I'm just going to copy this variable, and above this reducer, I'm just going to create that variable. Now for this variable, I will assign the value as 0. That's it. Instead of directly passing values here, you can create separate variable and accordingly this value will be assigned to count, and using dispatch function we are requesting for this update, and accordingly inside reducer we are performing all the updation to our state. Now maybe this is very overwhelming because this is very small application, and for this small application we can easily use useStateHook, but only to compare and only to understand useReducer structure I have used the simple example. Later we are going to work with complex project and understand this useReducer in more better way. Now from here we are not using useState. I will remove from import, and also I'm going to remove this state. You can see we do not need any event handler. I'm just going to remove. Instead, what we have done, we have passed dispatch, and accordingly based on the request we are performing different actions, and accordingly we are updating our state. So inside this reducer function we are managing our entire state. So this is more clean and also easy to understand because at one central place we have kept all the state and we are performing all the state updation logic. Very simple. Let us revise. So whenever we are using this useReducer, it is React hook and it is nothing but function which will be called using two arguments. First will be the reducer function and second will be the initial state. And this function is going to return array, and immediately when we are using this, we are going to destructure. You can also write here state. Accordingly, whatever variables you want, you can give. But mostly for dispatch, we follow this convention and write dispatch. So now what I want to do, here I am having three buttons: increment, decrement and reset. Whenever I click on this increment, I am just dispatching this with this action, and this is nothing but I am requesting to update the state, and accordingly based on this action I have to update the state. So inside this reducer function, we are going to pass two parameters: current state under action. And inside this switch statement, whatever button we have clicked, according to that, whatever action we are having, we are just going to check inside this expression. If that is getting matched, we are going to return new state. We are not going to update our original state. Instead, we are returning new state. And for each and every operation, we have written different cases. And finally, we have passed default state, which will be returning our state. And here we have already displayed the count, and accordingly, whatever value we are having in this count, that will be updated. So for example, if I click on increment, this case will be executed. Current value of state is 0, 0 plus 1, 1. 1 will be passed here, and inside JSX 1 will be displayed. If I click on decrement, now the current value is 1. 1 minus 1, I will have the new state 0. 0 will be passed here, and again inside this 0 will be displayed. So this is how useReducer will be working. This is the simple structure of useReducer. Next, we are going to see some more use cases of useReducer, and instead of assigning this primitive values, normal primitive values for dispatch and action, we are going to see how to pass object and how to perform complex state updates.